So we're going to talk about things that are passionate to both of us for different reasons, but I think we'll speak about why we both, having become aware of this, we feel like it's something that if anybody who gets to know the topic of universal design will feel as strongly as we do about it.
I hope so.
Um, I'm an interior designer. I've been one for many, many years. I'm also the wife of a person with disabilities. And so I bring that to my perspective on all designs I do. And Shelly, you go ahead.
That's right. So I have 3 children, and my 2 older had many different learning differences, including like sensory processing disorder. So I sort of started looking at design through their eyes first. And now I have an 8-year-old that lives with Down syndrome. And so it's opened up my eyes to an entirely new world, new group of people that live with disability every day. And I realized that it was something that I could sort of niche into and work with these families and kind of share my life experience. So yeah, that's how I got into universal design. And when I realized really how common disability is, it was surprising to me. And that's why I think I'm so
Right?
excited that you and I are getting to talk about this, because I think the stat is 1 of us in every 4 have some kind of a disability. And only about 10% of those are even visible. So there's a lot of different
Right.
disabilities that we all struggle with, and our homes should really support us, in those ways. So,
Right. And they should support us in ways that we don't even notice, because the more often we notice that we need help with something, that illustrates that a design has not considered how you might need to use something, right? So the better things are designed, the more seamless the experience of using them and living with them are.
yeah, I agree. And this is so much more than just the ADA laws and rules. This is really about how any person experiences a space or their own home. And it really should be as equitable as possible. So everyone, regardless of their disability or non-disability, should experience a space, especially a commercial space, in the same way, as equal as we can make it.
Right. And I don't really work in commercial space. I work in residential primarily. I've done some hospitality, but mostly residential. And in New York City, there are a lot of things that we can't modify as much as we could. I know you're building a home and you're doing it with your eye to universal design. I recently built an apartment for myself and my husband, or my husband and I built an apartment for the two of us. And there were things that simply code would not allow us to do in the existing building. And that's, so to your point, there are things that are not ADA compliant in my home, but they accommodate to his needs. And if I were to break my leg, or I were to, I was on crutches 2 years ago, and there were things that I had done for him, but that turned out to be tremendously helpful for me.
That's great.
Just, yeah, right. Because a lot of disabilities aren't permanent,
True.
right?
We have
You were talking about when you were
different
pregnant.
That's right. Different chapters in your life. I do remember being very pregnant and wishing I had a grab bar to get up and down, and whether or not you have an accident or you have a temporary issue or you're aging in place, which is another really hot topic that every designer watching this should really be thinking about. I mean, regardless of whether you're born with a disability or not, or you think that maybe it's a very small population that you may or may not ever get to work with, all of us are aging. All of us want to stay in our homes as long as possible and feel like we have dignified and beautiful spaces. I don't think many of us think about wanting to ever have to live in some kind of a clinical environment. So, being able to go into spaces and adapt them for graceful and beautiful aging is so important.
Yep, it really is. And if you do it on the front end, it's totally economical as well. So I was having a conversation, I've told Shelly this, that I sometimes get pushback from clients when I say, like, whenever I design bathrooms, I always insist on putting blocking behind all of the walls in the bathroom. It's really inexpensive. I just did a 200, an enormous bathroom, okay? And it was $500 to add blocking to the entire bathroom. That was labor and materials, like nothing in comparison to the price of the bathroom. But now if they, in addition to the fact that we can like put our towel bars and hooks wherever we want because the backing is there, if we ever want to add grab bars or anything like that, we won't have to put something that's unattractive because, it's plastic and so it can stick to the wall. And we also won't be like just wedded to the spaces that like taking off a towel bar and replacing it with a grab bar. We'll be able to do whatever works best for the client.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And if there are any designers that are watching that want to put a question in the chat, I think I'd love to know why this is so taboo. Like you were saying, I think you said your client was like, why do I need grab bars? Like, I don't even want to
they like totally freaked. They're in their mid 60s. And I think they were close enough to thinking about things of aging where me bringing it up felt almost like an accusation but I think part of the problem with that is that it's called disabled instead of like differently abled, right?
True.
Because it's just different. Like I can't do some things that I used to do 20 years ago, right? I experience things differently now.
Yeah, our glasses now.
I was going to say, I can't see it the same way. Exactly. You're like, you saw the picture of the two of us on the promo for this. Neither one of us were in glasses.
That's right.
Right. And so even things like the color of your floors, as your depth perception, as you age and your depth perception is not as acute, or your color perception isn't as acute, those kinds of things are real. It's so valuable to clients for us as designers to bring that to the table and think of it for them so they don't come back. I mean, if somebody came to me 5 years hence and said like, my vision's not as good anymore and so this isn't working, I have not thought far enough ahead for them. Like my clients are too invested in the renovations and the design that they do to have to replace it within the amount of time that you would replace like a pillow, right?
Of course.
Okay, a pillow, you like it today and you don't like it next year, that's fine.
I love the slides that you put together. So thank you. As we go through, we can show people there's just really no excuse. First of all, it's the right thing to do. And it's forward thinking, it's efficient, and it definitely brings a lot of dignity to design. And then further, there's so many beautiful products now. I mean, companies are finally starting to understand, hey, we have this huge group of people that need beautiful design materials. Right. And so you've got a few of them in your slideshow that
let's introduce your son, your beautiful son.
Okay, so let's see.
Can you see the slide I've got up?
I cannot yet.
Oh, can you? Okay.
Let's see.
I think that other people probably can.
Okay.
So for anybody watching, this is my first time like running the slideshow. So, Andrew, if you could chime in and tell us if people can see this. Andrew, Olivia.
Aha, now we're there.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Is this the first slide here?
Oh, you know what? They're sharing the slideshow. So this was not the first one we talked about, but we'll go with it. How's that, Shelly?
Yeah, let's do it.
Great. Okay. There's your son.
Okay, this is Ronan. So he's 8 years old now, but he has, people that live with Down syndrome and other genetic conditions often have very low muscle tone. Their coordination is very delayed. And so even though he's 8, he's still, presenting about 4 years old. And so one of the things that I really wanted to talk about just with people that are born with different conditions that need a little bit of help is just sort of meeting them where they are. Can really bolster and empower a person. So I have a lot less meltdowns and a lot less stress because like here, for an example, I buy materials where he can participate in normal household activities without breaking things. So this black vase is actually a metal canister. And so anyway, I buy things to where he can participate and hang out with me and be in the kitchen and learn like most kids learn, but also, you know, making sure that I can have beauty, but it also functions well. So he's my muse.
So want to bring the next slide up. We're going to go up to the top. Let's go to the kitchens, the two kitchens.
Perfect.
Yeah, great. Okay. So because this is the space, as you just mentioned, Shelly, where we all spend so much time, our kitchens, I also, in my design, and I know you do in yours, try to make spaces where, as we said before, the more things that can be adapted preemptively, the more a person can use, any person can use the space to its best capacity.
Time.
Right.
And
So for
help
instance,
their guests as well. Their guests can use the space because we're all different shapes and sizes and abilities.
exactly. So on the kitchen on the right here, I put these refrigerated drawers on the outside so that if somebody couldn't navigate that, not that it's tight, there's 40 inches clearance between those other, you know, inside where the stove and the other island is. But if other people are there, it's hard for a person if a person were in a vehicle or a person is, you know, larger and has like spatial relations issues, hard for them to navigate to get into that space. So this is a place where a family can keep, you know, beverages, snacks, things where somebody can go and get it by themselves. It's below counter height. It's nothing where somebody who is in a scooter would have trouble reaching. It's nothing with somebody without dexterity. Like, let's say you don't have good hand grip. A lot of older people, even with arthritis, have trouble like with knobs and handles. So you put your hand in here and you just use your body weight to pull these out. And that's
a great idea. And it's good for kids too, just families with neurotypical children. You know, this is such a fantastic idea for just them to be empowered and help themselves.
right. And then something I never do is put the microwave above, in addition to the fact that I don't like the look, but the microwave above the stove because of two reasons. Number one, if your stove was or is hot, it's a dangerous place to reach. But second of all, it's another thing that makes it harder for certain people, short people, like there's a young, you know, kids, it's hard to get to. So you can't really see it very much, but on this second island back on the right-hand side, kitchen, the microwave is in the side of the island. So, you know, putting things at counter height where people of different ages, sizes, they can all access it.
That's true. I do love too in design in kitchens where we can do multi-level areas. So some counter heights are, you know, you can have multiple counter heights for different people. And I love how you do, instead of a knob, which can be really hard to grab for different people to do, like, it looks like you've got a great piece.
Right, what I've got is pulls. So you can just do this.
And these things are really simple, right? I just think sometimes we don't think them through, but they're simple and really important. So it just saves you time and money down the road.
Exactly. Also, you'll see, and just I'm realizing as I'm looking at this, both of those kitchens, and I like to do this also, have pot fillers. So for people who have trouble, like who have less muscle strength, who have less strength in general, older people, let's say, like when I was on crutches, it's hard to fill a pot and move it without two hands.
That's right.
And if you have a pot filler, you can fill your pot at the stove, right?
Fantastic. I like the choice of flooring that's easy to maneuver and lots of great light in both of these kitchens.
In both of these homes, the floor was contiguous. So there wasn't a different floor. This is wood floor in both that runs throughout so that there were no curbs and no saddles. And, you know, it made that really easy. And even for little toddlers, like think about them moving around, like every time there's a different height in the floor, even if it's, you know, a half an inch, that's hard. They tip over. And so this is great for them as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And somebody's writing in pot fillers still leave you with a full pot at the end. They totally do. I agree with that. In a perfect world, we would have a drain also on top of the stove. Don't have that.
I did think about that, how if you were older and as I'm building my new kitchen, like, wouldn't it be great to just slide it from the
Right.
stovetop over to a sink so you don't have to literally pick it up and turn around? That's a great
Right.
point.
So in both instances of these, you can actually slide. But and both countertops are made of things that wouldn't scratch, but plenty of times I use things where you wouldn't want to slide it across the top, of some kind of Carrara marble or something like that. What you can do is, first of all, some of it evaporate. You could basically leave it on and let the water reduce.
Hmm.
And when it's reduced enough, move the pot.
So what's the next slide? Oh, okay. Here's Ronan's bedroom. And one of the things that I was thinking about as I was, doing his room is to have lots of different materials. He does have sensory processing disorder, and a lot of people think that is where a child might be avoidant of a lot of sensory input, but my son's actually the opposite. He needs a lot of input. And I wanted to think about safety. This is an iron bunk bed. There's a lot of room to climb and use those big muscles. And I like this one specifically. I believe this was room and board, and the ladder is diagonal, which is much easier to navigate the top and bottom. And just to have that rug with a great texture. And then that orange piece is fun. It's a soft piece that he can sit on and read books. I also thought a lot about the lighting. I've got blackout lighting, blackout lining in the window treatment so that I can really handle what the lighting intensity is. And for a lot of us, our circadian rhythm is monitored by or run by what light we're seeing. So we all know that the more blue light you see at night, the more it keeps you awake, because natural morning light has a much more blue in it than light at noon or later in the day. As time progresses, the light gets warmer. So I do have dimmer switches in his room. I have lamps and other sources of light around the room that have different colored bulbs. So just thinking about materials as well, leather chairs, and of course, materials that he cannot beat up too quickly.
Or if he does, they look even better.
Yeah, just an example. And then, I really love to do some kind of a natural element, even if it's a faux plant. There is a concept that we can't get into today called biophilia, where, nature and scenes of nature really can calm us on a primitive level. And so always throwing in, some plants or a mural that's got some nature added to it, it's always a good idea too. So yeah, it's been fun to kind of look at how to do kids' rooms to train their eye. I feel like everyone deserves design. It's fun to do sometimes kids' rooms with their favorite character, but I really think a long term, if you're going to use a designer or you're going to be with a client, to do a room that kids can grow into that's more sophisticated is also really nice.
I totally agree. I do that all the time.
And the art that's hanging on his walls, those are permanently attached. So it's not just a nail where and we used plexiglass instead of glass. So there were different things in this room that were really well thought through so that he would be safe in his environment.
Here we go. So another thing to think about, and I think part of what Shelly and I are trying to illustrate, is that this is all so easy for everybody to do. And so if any designers out there, if any, people who are using designers, it does not impact the beauty and the aesthetic of something to make it accessible. So every bed I do, every sofa I do, unless the client has a really specific reason of why we shouldn't do it this way, I put at 18 inches. And I think this picture on the right of the bed is a little distorted. So it looks a little higher than 18 inches, but 18 inches is your average seat height. It's the height that an older person can easily sit down into and get out of. It is the height that's not too high for a younger person to climb onto. And it's any like dining chair, anything like that is going to be at about an 18-inch seat height, as are scooters, wheelchairs, anything like that. And so if you have a guest who is in some sort of vehicle and they want to transition to, your sofa, if your sofa is the same height as their seat, just think about yourself like scooching from one to the next. If you're not changing height, it's pretty easy to scooch. And so that's one of the things I do that, and I never get pushback on that. People are like, well, why do I need it a different height? And except for people who want like a super low look, you know, that,
Yeah, like a platform bed or something.
exactly. But aside from that, there's really, it works with every style of design.
Yeah, I think it's great. And also I tend to do, well, mattresses are so subjective. So somebody might really like a soft mattress, and I know that I do, but the softer the piece of furniture, the harder it is to get up and out of it
Yep.
when you need to. And so that's also a consideration. I've talked to several different furniture manufacturers who are very willing, if you have an older client that's aging in place, to do a tighter or more firm seat.
Yep.
So that, you know, it's just easier. It's just these little things. And as you talk to your clients about it, and if they're open to it, and that's probably another whole seminar on what the art of talking to a client would be and bringing up these topics, so that they look at it as a way to maintain their dignity in the future, and not something that's negative, or, you know, thinking about something that's sad, or that they don't want to look. They want to look forward to aging in their home, and this is a way to help them do that.
Right. Well, even think about people our age. I have a client who recently had a lot of back problems. And thankfully they've figured it out and they're fine again. And it was nothing, you know, long lasting, but it was definitely helpful that they had an environment that they could move in as comfortably as possible, you know, and not further hurt themselves.
Absolutely. That's a good point. Another thing I wanted to point out on your photo here, in both rooms, is that you have beautiful sconces.
Yep.
And it's so important that we think about lighting. We're spending so much more time at home now, right? A lot of us are quarantining. Sometimes we have to, and sometimes for me, because I have someone that I live with that's compromised, I've chosen to quarantine. And lighting has a lot to do with anxiety. So in the evenings, it's nice to turn off those overhead lights and have either a dimmer switch or those beautiful sconces that just have this soft light, and it signals our brain that we can now decompress and start to relax. You know, as simple as that might sound, why shouldn't your home be a haven that you look forward to being within, you know, in the evening time? And so I love that you did sconces in a lot of this work here.
Yeah. And to your point of like the dimmers, that's the same as putting the blocking in the bathroom. Like,
Well, why wouldn't you?
dimmers from the start. There's no reason not to put them. And if you want your lights up all the time, just keep them at the top.
Yeah, and even if it's just an aesthetic, you know, purpose, but it really is nice. And now with smart home technology, you can have your lights continue to change as, say, if you're in a bright apartment, you have lots of great sunlight, but over time, then your sconces can start coming on. In the middle of the night when it's darkest, you can have certain night lights come on. So that way the person that's living in the home doesn't even have to remember or think about it. That's something, as a designer, as arbiters of this better health and ease of living, we can create or buy these programs for our clients and then schedule them so that it's just something they don't even have to think about, but they can just enjoy.
And that's exactly right. And based on the tenet of universal design, if they don't have to think about it, it's been designed well.
Right. I mean, that's what we're initially doing for a client, is saving them time and money. And, you know, time you can't get back. And this whole idea of really living in our homes, not just existing in our homes, but really living in our homes, is exciting to me.
Yeah.
So, okay, your next slide is, oh, that's right, the dining.
Right. Okay. So again, we have, oh, I don't know that you can see in the right side, but the left side, like all different types of lighting, overhead lighting, chandelier lighting. We have lighting under the cabinets. Again, the way that I have these sort of things I like to use in every environment, I try, unless there's a specific reason a client wants otherwise, to always have pedestal dining tables. This allows for not just scooters or wheelchairs, but high chairs, all different kinds. Oh, I need like a booster chair for a toddler. It allows you to push those up to the table and then if you've 27 inches clearance below, and then your table height tops out at 28 to 30, you'll be able to fit tall people with their long legs underneath. You'll also be able to fit, like I said, these other types of chairs if you need to. And at the same time, nobody will be like looking at the table from here. It won't be too high. So
there's nothing more irritating than going to a guest home and sitting in some small chair where you feel like you're not at the same height as everyone else.
Or don't you hate when you're in a restaurant and you sit at the banquette and you're like, oh, here I am.
Yes.
Sorry, people over there who are in a chair. Yeah, I mean, part of what is really important is that we all just look at each other, right? So like, look me in the eye.
Absolutely.
And if I'm sitting eye level from you, I can do that. And so all of these things that I'm pointing out are things that put people at the same level. And when we're at the same level, we can have a conversation and look at each other like, with empathy and heart, and also enjoy each other's company more.
That's right. And that's really what home is about. Okay, so our next one then is, the bathroom. And it's so important, the bathroom. I think more than anybody realizes. When I talk to other designers about an ADA accessible bathroom, everyone thinks about a very unattractive, clinical looking hospital type bathroom. And I just would never do that for a client. And I am convinced, and I want everyone else to know, that bathrooms can be stunning and still serve a multitude of clients. And so these are two very good examples. I love the flooring that you chose with the mosaic and lots of grout for grip.
Right. Like, so these are both wet spaces. People are going to be dripping, and I understand the idea of wanting something like slick and, clean feeling. The bathroom on the right, it's hard to tell in the picture, but it's got lacquered walls. It does have a really slick look, but the small grout, the small tile on the floor, like you said, there's a lot of grout. And so nobody's going to slip. It gives you the confidence that you're stable in the bathroom. On the right-hand side, the design of that vanity allows somebody to actually hold on to that bar, the lower bar, which is really helpful. And they're just two spaces that work very well for somebody who has, balance issues and other things like that. But as you can see, there's nothing clinical about either of these.
No, and I love like the sinks that were chosen here, the pedestal sinks. They're easy to, if you have a walker or you're in a wheelchair or scooter, to be able to get to. Yep. The handles are all levered handles. And again, I bring up the smart home technology. I know that there are, obviously in commercial spaces, you see motion censored faucets, which I really love. That way, like for example, my son's bathroom, he can just put his hands under and he doesn't have to worry about trying to do hot or cold. We don't have to worry about burns. The temperature is already set.
Right.
And now I'm trying to remember what brand it is, but there is a new voice sensor for a faucet as well. I feel like it's a Delta. I'll have to look into it, but there's just so many things. Also, as you walk into a bathroom, the lights can pop on. Yep. So that someone doesn't have to fumble for the light switch if they're a guest and they don't know your powder room. And there's just so many little things that are details, but really not that expensive, very easy, that make these spaces so much more accessible.
Right. And they're easy and inexpensive when they're done from the start. Retrofitting is like a different creature altogether. And so if if we as designers can think about that as we're doing things to build that into the schedule for the project, we can end up with something that's going to last much longer for our client.
Absolutely. And I'm seeing on the chat that Kimberly is talking about just really being empathetic toward your client and not assuming that we know. So she's right. It's really easy to kind of assume that as designers or anybody, when we have an idea of what someone must be going through, but she makes a point of, just like with any interior design client, to really ask a lot of open-ended questions to really find out what their frustrations are. Because Kammi, I remember asking you about your husband, and you might think he needs certain things. He might disagree and say, well, that embarrasses me, or that doesn't really bother me like you think it would. What really bothers me is this other thing.
Right.
So just having that conversation with clients is important. I tend to work with kids that aren't verbal. So a lot of times I am guessing. I mean, I definitely ask the parents a lot of questions, but sometimes I'm in the position of having to guess what their frustrations might be and help translate that for the parent. So that's a good reminder to me to really ask more questions and not just assume that I know what they're going through, because we all are very different. Thanks, Kimberly.
Yeah, to your point, Kimberly, when I've had people look at my portfolio and my website and say, like, try to find like a thread through my design. And while I can, I part of what I try to do is spend a lot of time getting to know my clients and what works for them and what I can bring to the table that will work for them and be best for them, because it's my job, or I see it as my job, to execute the best product for them. I don't, it doesn't need to be, I'm not living there. So it doesn't need to be my best home. It needs to be their best home. And so it's hard to show in images, but what my clients walk away with is their best home. So when you're seeing my portfolio and it looks like, oh, well, this is contemporary and this is traditional and this, what they all are is the best version of the person who lives in them.
I agree. And another thing we can point out to designers is, say you have younger clients mostly. Maybe you don't have a lot of boomer clients right now. But what we are seeing with the economy changing, with COVID, with so many things going on in the world now, are generations moving back in together. So even if you have a younger client, what I've seen is an uptick in mother-in-law or in-law suites, retrofitting guest bathrooms for an elderly parent. Maybe you've lost one parent, so the other parent doesn't want to go live in a home. And honestly, science shows that the elderly do better when they're living with family and their grandchildren. So, there's a lot of retrofitting that's needed, even for young families who are now inviting their parents to come and live with them.
Or even if they're not living with you, even if they're coming to stay with you, or even if isn't the idea to be able to be a great host, to make your guests feel comfortable. It doesn't matter if they're old or if they're, if all of these things, you can make a home that feels comfortable for a lot of people without negatively impacting the way that it looks and the amount that you choose to spend on it.
Absolutely, no doubt. So we have another question from Lynn, and this is coming up. She wanted to talk about bathroom accessories like toilet paper holders and towel bars, and I think we've got a great slide for that. There we are. Perfect timing, Lynn.
So these on the left, you will see two grab bars. The one above is great looking. The one below feels really institutional and commercial. And on the right, you'll see two door levers. The one on the right, again, very great looking, a lot of style. The one on the left, less than fabulous, let's say. So there are ways to do all of this that, again, do not negatively impact the visual. Speaking about toilet paper holders and towel bars, I personally do not use towel bars. I think that nobody hangs the towel the way it should be hung, except in the photo shoot. I think that when you fold the towel in three, a wet towel in three, it just gets mildewy and yucky. And so I prefer to use towel hooks. I think a beautiful towel hung nicely on a hook can look really nice and natural and beautiful and it will dry more nicely. And as far
And
as,
now I think really with COVID, I hate to bring up something negative, but I mean, we're all washing our hands so much more now and being so much more careful. So I have beautiful linen hand towels, but now I don't use really any of them. I just have a beautiful container with all those, paper
right.
one use towels. And I know that's not as green. But for now, because of germs and things, like everyone wants their own hand towel. So, maybe we do away with the towel holders altogether, but I agree with the hook idea. And,
And it's also something like a kid can easily do.
oh, absolutely. And to have hooks at different levels, of course.
Right. Yep.
Um, One thing that I love about your pictures that we've discussed is, having a lever or a bar that has some type of non-slip texture. So unfortunately, with this picture, this beautiful grab bar at the top left doesn't really have a grip. So it might be great for near a toilet, but
Right.
maybe not as good for showers, which we were kind of discussing as we put this together. But the bottom one that is more clinical, even though I don't like the look of it at all, I did want to point out that texture difference there really helps somebody. So that's an important thing in a shower or a bath.
Right. And you know what I've done when that comes up and somebody wants something good looking is put on the back, put some of the kind of textured tape that's
Oh,
made for wet surfaces. Like it's and then when somebody grabs, they have that on the back. And also I was telling you, I've designed some shower bars of my own made of textured concrete that can go in the shower and also look super cool. They look like a decorative element instead of a
fun
towel.
to put a list together of like hacks, because there are a segment of families that struggle with affording these changes. And so it'd be fun for my families that I work with to be able to give them, like, that tape idea is such an
Right.
easy hack, and to have maybe an Amazon list of these things you can do. That's a super idea for the bathrooms.
And then about toilet paper holders, I don't like the toilet paper holders that have the spring inside, because I think that that's, again, you need a lot of dexterity to change that. And so if you imagine this brass door lever on the right, if the toilet paper holders that are sort of the inverted version of that, where the roll just pops in onto the stem, that's something everybody can use easily. It doesn't fall off the way that the one that's to the side does.
Well, and Cam, have you ever do you block as well for the back of the toilet paper holder?
I block the whole bathroom.
Yeah, because I think that's such a good idea, because honestly, if I were to, I'm assuming as I get older, I have a knee that really bothers me. If I have trouble getting up off the toilet and I
Right, you
can't
can
reach
hold
the
on to
grab
that.
bar, yeah, I mean, I just think, or if
They're
you're
attached to the wall in a different way. And
okay, yeah.
so that's why some people will say to me, like, why can't we just use the towel bar? Like the grab bar, that line we're using doesn't have a grab bar. Why can't we just use another towel bar? But they attach to the wall in a different way, and the grab bars have more secure anchoring to the wall. And
I don't
that's
know if you ever saw Grace and Frankie, but there were a lot of situations like this in that cute Netflix series where she needed a little help maneuvering in the restroom. That was fun.
okay. I'll
So
have to watch that.
what's our next slide here?
Right. So this is, go ahead, Shelly.
Oh, this kind of pops back to the kitchen, but this was just, Kammi and I realized that we both thought of this, just so that everybody maintains dignity and can set the table and be a part of things. And we want nice, beautiful things, but obviously we want to minimize the possibility of breaking. Melamine dishes are so pretty now. And we both realized that we both have melamine dishes, and it was something that we both enjoyed using. And so we thought we'd just show a picture of how easy it is to replace china. And didn't you find some
So the
melamine
china on the right here by Bernardo is the china, like what I have in my kitchen for my daily wear. And when my husband started to suffer with, like, when his balance issues became really challenging and he started dropping things, like, bad enough to drop it, but it feels really lousy to drop it and break stuff and then feel like, oh gosh, I can't clean it up myself because that's hard to do. So I was determined to find, like, to maintain the same look in my kitchen. And I found these melamine plates that are, I mean, they don't have the same sheen as, and they don't have the same lightness as the porcelain, but they have the same look. And so, and when my kids came for dinner one night, they looked at the table, and then when we sat down to the table, they're like, oh my God, these aren't our regular dishes. I mean, my kids don't live with me, so they're grown. But when they sat down, they were like, oh my God, these are the same dishes, but they're not the same dishes. And for me, I like my home to look beautiful. I like to feel like when I'm setting a table, it feels like a special occasion. And so this was a way for me to make something that felt good for me and also felt comfortable for my husband in a way that we were both feeling good and proud of what we were doing.
Absolutely. I mean, it's ultimately about inclusion. You know, and I know at the holidays, I always set a kids table. So isn't this fun just to include your kids, your grandkids, your nieces and nephews? Everybody gets to have kind of the same thing. And the feeling of inclusion makes people happier, feel a sense of belonging that just, and ultimately makes a better world. So just all of these little details, I think they're also beautiful acrylic glassware. I think you and I were showing each other our wine glasses the other night.
Last night I was showing Shelly, I was like, here's my wine glass and here's my husband's wine glass. And they were indistinguishable, but mine was glass and his was plastic.
Yeah, it's fantastic what we can do now. So, I mean, really, as this has become a hot topic, and we have so many more people that are now more comfortable with sharing with their designers or, you know, people that are working with them that they're struggling with these disabilities. At the same time, we've got technology and design for all that just makes it possible to do it easily.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
It's been so great talking to you. If anybody, I think, do we want to go to questions?
that'd be awesome. Let's do it.
I don't know if we have any, or if people feel they want to reach out to us separately to ask some questions.
Well, again, I think that if anybody does have questions or stories that they want to share, I would honestly love to talk to other designers about this. I'd love to hear your stories. You can reach me at Shelly, Shelly, at acornandoak.com. Kammi, you can give them your email as well. I'd love to start this conversation with my peers.
Me too. Shelly and I was saying last night, like we couldn't get off the phone. We were like so excited talking about all of this. So I'm Kammi Reiss, and my website is KammiReissDesign.com. And you can email me there, or Kammi at KammiReissDesign.com.
Yeah. Okay. I think we have a new message.
Lenora, you're welcome. We hope you'll reach out to us. We hope the rest of you will too. And this has been really great. Andrew, thank you so much for having us.
It's been so fun, and it's such an important topic. I hope that we can get a group together that really wants to start discussing and sharing ideas, because there's just so much out there. Okay, so I'm not sure if Andrew is ready to call it. If anybody has any other questions.
Oh, there he is.
Okay, good.
Thank you so much for really amazing content. And thank you for everyone that's tuned in. And we look forward to meeting with you again. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Bye.